Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is the June 29th, 2021 meeting of the Election Commission. We will be starting at 6:06 p.m. First, I'd ask the clerk to do a roll call.
Chairman Sullivan, Vice Chair Chairman Pope.
Vice Chair Jim Pope, you're here, right?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. All right, so all members are present. So just briefly before we commence, just the first item in old business is just votes to accept the meeting minutes from prior meetings. So I thought we'd just do that first.
So I move to accept the meetings minutes from last
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the last Election Commission meetings. Motion by Zoe, seconded by Bev. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So the meeting minutes from the Election Commission are accepted. So moving on to new business, given the sort of the public speakers that are present on, I believe, item 3C on the agenda, Madam Chairwoman, I was going to make a suggestion that through motion, this item could be moved to the first item on the agenda so that we can address it now.
Make a motion to have 3C be the first item of business for new business.
Okay. So motion by Zoe to move item 3C up as the first item of new business. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So item 3C has now been placed at the front of the agenda, which is an update on voter outreach regarding polling location changes for the 2021 municipal elections. We do have some public speakers that have requested to speak on this item. Again, before we begin, just to go over some ground rules, we ask that if you are not speaking, please mute your mic so that we prevent crosstalk. Additionally, because of the number of public speakers, we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And finally, up to the chairwoman, if you want to have the speakers speak first, or if you want me to just give a few comments regarding the changes, it's up to you, however you think appropriate.
So Ali, you can go ahead and give the comments, and then right after we'll start with just with the election commission registered speaker list. Just go right down.
Okay, that sounds good. So and just for the record, I tried to set up the registered speaker list as we received the requests, so that we try to keep them in temporal order. So we'll just go down the list once it's ready. Before we begin, I just want to give a few comments regarding the polling location changes, sort of the reasons why they were instituted for the municipal elections this year, sort of the reasons behind it, and sort of the implications. So just to provide by way of background, in the civil rights lawsuit, the voting rights lawsuit case that was instituted, a federal consent decree was put in place to resolve the lawsuit. And as part of that consent decree, one of the requirements was that in the 2021 municipal elections, we would be holding those municipal elections with the new district system in place, which divides Lowell City Hall into 8 municipal districts, in which the city council will be voted, one for each district, as well as having some councilors at large. And same thing with school committee, it would be divvied up in a similar fashion. As part of the federal consent decree, the way it was supposed to work was that when the federal census data was released to municipalities so that we could re-precinct, we would re-precinct our wards and precincts so that they would fit within these new municipal districts. So, and typically the federal census data for re-precincting is released by the federal government to the states early in the year, such as February or March. So as a result, what should have happened is that our re-precincting would have been done early in the year so that our wards and precincts would have been set for the municipal elections. However, due to issues with the administration of the census and the previous administration, our census data is not going to be received until September of this year, which, and as a result, our re-precincting is not going to be complete until after the municipal elections in 2021. As a result, we have to do the elections using our old wards and precincts. And the problem with that is that currently there are 13 wards and precincts in the city that are divided between 2 or more of the new municipal districts. Now, the way voters vote in the state of Massachusetts is that you vote by ward and precinct. So depending on your ward and precinct, you go to your polling location and you get your ballot based on your ward and precinct. Unfortunately, due to, again, factors beyond our control, the fact that our federal census data is going to be late and we can't receive it in time for the municipal elections, we can't use our wards and precincts as they're currently structured because they're divided between 2 or more municipal districts. Therefore, in the interest of ensuring the integrity of the voting process, to make sure that voters know the proper locations in which they vote for the district and they receive the correct ballot, it's been determined that the only way we can really do it with our current wards and precincts is to have one polling location serve as our polling location for the district. So that way we ensure that voters are at the correct polling location, that they get the correct ballot. Otherwise, if they do it by our wards and precincts, there's no real way to determine by someone's ward and precinct what ballot they're supposed to receive. And if it's left up to poll workers at polling locations to sort of look up voters by their street, it runs a risk of promoting error, where voters could receive the wrong ballot and other issues such as that. So these changes were recommended and the Election Commission approved them in response to these issues. And again, these are issues beyond our control, the receiving the federal data late and sort of the issues with our current wards and precincts, which just don't fit into the municipal districts. It's our hope that once we receive the federal census data in September and we finish the re-precincting, that will ensure in the future that we can move forward with more polling locations and set up as and the like. But as of right now, for these municipal elections, in order to comply with the federal consent decree and in light of the issues with the federal census data, it was our determination, and it was the vote of the Election Commission, that this was the way we would implement it. So having given those comments now, I'd like to recommend to the chairwoman that we open it up to public comment based on the list. So the chairwoman is going to go again down the list and we'll call out those that wish to speak. I believe I have everyone here on the list. If you hear your name, please unmute yourself and please give your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Is Dawn Grenier here?
Hi, I'm Dawn Grenier. Thank you for those comments. It was helpful to have some context about all the factors that are going in here.
Before you continue, Dawn, can you please put the volume up?
Oh,
I can't hear.
I put the max. You know what I'll do? I'll set up the speakers. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Do you mind just saying your name for the record, just to make sure it popped up?
Sure. This is Dawn Grenier.
Is that good for everyone? Okay, great. Thank you, Dawn.
All right. Thanks for those comments. It was helpful to have a little more administrative context about the factors. I just learned about this vote to reduce polling stations this morning and was very surprised. It makes a little more sense now with that context, but I think it's still just an alarming message for voters to receive without that additional context. And I still think I would hope that the city would be able to find some additional solutions that make sure that voter access isn't decreased by this. I understand there are compliance issues that have to be dealt with, but I have major concerns about there being two major changes in election processes this year. One being the overall change to the district system, which is great, and I think is certainly driving increased interest in local district-based candidates and campaigns, and hopefully that will turn into increased voter turnout. But I am also very concerned that the change and reduction in polling stations will make it harder for people to vote at all. So I hope that there can be some other alternatives considered to give more locations, and barring that, certainly that there be much more effort by the city and also its supporting community organizations to get the word out. Because I think the messaging overall around election changes has not always been quite as outgoing as I would have hoped as a community member. And I certainly think that this change needs even more messaging, obviously. I do remember, I can't remember what year it was, but a few years ago, there was a change that resulted in some moves and maybe closures of longtime polling stations. And there was so much confusion in that election. And I think that was probably more moves than actual reduction. So also just remembering that and what a challenge it was for people to figure out where they were supposed to be. I think that if where they're supposed to be is even more different than it was in the previous time, is really essential that there be a lot of active communication about the decision and about the options going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, for the comments. Eileen Morrison?
Sorry, did you say Eileen Morrison?
Yes.
I request that the commission move to reconsider the vote because I think it's essential for there to be public input to ensure equity in voting access on this issue. I agree that it makes sense to align the polling places with districts for the practical reasons that you mentioned, but the reduction in polling places may make it harder to vote, particularly for low-income people, people with disabilities, and others. Furthermore, local nonprofits have shouldered the burden of disseminating information about the voting changes. And I'd like to know what resources the city plans to invest in making sure that the public knows about these changes to the polling places so that this doesn't just fall on the nonprofits to have the obligation to disseminate this information without any funding provided by the city to help ensure that voters know about these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Kim Scott? Is Kim Scott on? I see that.
I am. Sorry, hold on one second. Sorry about that. So I would just like to say thank you to the Election Commission for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Kim Scott from 27 Commonwealth Ave. And I just wanted to say that I'm deeply concerned about the decision to decrease the polling locations by 40%. We just took huge steps to have a more representative voting system in the city of Lowell. And I think this is a giant step backwards by adding another barrier for people to vote, especially for those that don't have transportation to get to the polls. Well, I've been out door knocking for city council. I've heard from many people so far that they don't understand the new system, or they don't like the new system, or you know, they don't know who they're going to be able to vote for. And I'm really worried that this is going to add confusion, maybe some animosity, and really disasters. I ask that at least maintain spots believe the answer is to go to 2 per district. New districts, you added some text that was a little bit helpful. Early voting, maybe having it in the specific districts, the new districts. And I'm sure the petition was not meant to suppress voters, but I really think that's what's going to happen if you maintain this new decision to go down to 8. Thank you very much, and I hope you consider a new plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Corey Robinson?
Thank you. My name is Corey Robinson, 5 West 10th Street. Absolutely, I agree with the speakers before me. For one, optics. I mean, I myself, I was very excited to invite my neighbors to participate in this historical election. Now, I basically have to invite them to potentially walk to the other end of our district and wait in long lines. I think all of this is about opportunity. I understand there are some difficulties regarding the census data. One thing I believe is that we are looking to increase voter turnout. And so, leaves, work towards an equitable, thoughtful means to accomplish it. I mean, in a city this size, I'm sure we can put our brains together to accommodate our neighbors' desire to vote. I say we work together to showcase what can be done when we work to raise the bar. Suggest one poll location is very counterproductive to any efforts to increase voter engagement among neighbors west of Bridge Street, especially in my district. We request commissioners introduce a new motion tonight to reconsider the June 15th vote, to put this consideration on an agenda at your next meeting, do some outreach to the voters and subject matter experts on the best policy to ensure full access to voting this fall and beyond. And please, public input should be key. That's what's lacking here. I myself just caught wind of it, and I think as a whole, we're moving in the right direction, in my opinion, with district representation. So let's also do that. Let's follow suit and do the right thing and give every voter that wants to vote a pretty good opportunity. If we put hurdles in these people's paths, we can kiss voter engagement and turnout goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anthony Maselli or Ms. Millsy?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear the name. What was the name?
Anthony Millsy? Or Milchi?
I don't see him on the list
Okay.
as of this moment.
Thank you. Marty Hogan? Is Marty Hogan there?
I don't see Marty Hogan in the list.
Ryan Rourke?
Thank you, everyone. Just want to say thank you to the Election Commission. I know that serving on a board can be a thankless job. So thank you for all the work that you're doing and for having this public forum. I'm definitely not in favor of the decision of the June 15th meeting. I know that we've done a lot to get where we are now with the new voting districts. I think this is a bit of a missed opportunity, and at worst, it's a little bit of an oversight. Feels a little tone deaf. I know that there's nothing nefarious going on. Obviously, I wouldn't hope there's anything like that. But it really sort of favors the status quo. And as someone who is looking to run for the first time, I know that it's frustrating as opposed to talking about any kind of voter apathy. A lot of people are, democracy can be a fragile thing, and voting is something that is at the heart and soul of it. Voter turnout goes down when it rains out. So something as big as narrowing down the amount of polling locations. Now, I understand with the wards and the districts not 100% matching up, but I'd be in favor of, adding more, adding 2 or 3 locations per district. I know here in District 4, where we're the most spread out district. I mean, we go from the Lowell connector over to Centerville and Pawtuckettville. So I know it's really tough. And I know that Paul's on this call, and he can echo my comments that doesn't favor someone like him who's in Pawtuckettville, that, people in his neighborhood have to come downtown, whether it's transportation or just any kind of barrier. So I respectfully ask for you to reconsider the vote that was handed down a few weeks ago. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you. Aurora Erickson?
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Aurora Erickson. I'm a program coordinator at Coalition for a Better Acre. I'm speaking here on behalf of my organization, and my executive director, Yunju Choi, wanted to be here today and regrets that she's not able to. I want to thank the Elections Office for all of their efforts to work with the community partners over the years. We know they're asked to do a lot with limited resources, and we know they sincerely believe in the work that they do. Today, I want to ask the Commission to make a motion to reconsider the decision to reduce our polling places and to consider having a public input session prior to changing the voting location, to voting on the locations again. Although I want to be very clear that I don't believe this was malicious, I believe the significant reduction of polling places will result in voter suppression. It represents a 40% reduction in polling locations at a crucial election when you're trying to build trust in a new system. When we talk to voters, unfortunately, we hear a lot of cynicism and a lot of mistrust. And we need to do everything that we can to help voters believe that every voter is valued the same in this city. Unfortunately, in the Acre neighborhood, we have already had a number of changes to our polling places. We believe this would be the 4th polling place change in 7 years for some of our Acre voters who have been switched already from the library to LTC to the high school and now would be asked to switch to the senior center. We worry that many of our voters walk to vote and that this will be a long distance to walk, especially if they mistakenly go to the high school. When the census results come in, it's likely that we'll need to readjust these locations. And I believe that we should avoid changes now when we know when we have another one coming. Each change confuses voters and results in needing to use our precious resources to get the word out. We do want to say that if part of the concern is that it's been difficult to fill out the poll workers, we know that could be a tough challenge. CBA really wants to help. We can offer staff support if that's what's needed to make our elections possible. Finally, I want to close with asking that if we do make any changes, the city is very clear about what efforts will be made to make people know, to make sure people know. This is not a long turnaround to get the word out before the preliminary, especially when you factor in translation time, which I hope we would be doing. This is already a very confusing election, so I really hope significant resources are available to tell people about this change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aurora. Key Kawashina Ginsburg.
Thank you. This is Kay Kawashima Ginsburg for the record. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and for the work that you put in and the time. I speak as a resident at 43 Nicollet Street in Lowell, as well as a director of a nationally known research center at Tufts University that focuses on young people's civic engagement as well as learning. So I speak from both perspectives. As a result of that, I have some numbers to share with you that I hope would maybe motivate you to reconsider some of that. In 2018, we were able to make Lyft and Uber actually offer a half price ride to the polling place as a result of our study that found out that the people that were already registered and young who ended up not registering to vote tended to say that they just didn't have the transportation to get to the polling place. That was true to 28% of young people who were registered but ended up not voting. And that's another mobilization problem that's going to be more severe in a municipal election than federal election, which was the election that we look at the data for. We also found that the large number of young people, especially coming from low-income background, we did a study with Opportunities United, which is a national organization, have really lacked knowledge of where the polling place is to begin with. 39% of young people who fall into this category who are young, once again, stated that they did not know where to vote. And this was just a month before the election, again, the federal election. Another study that somebody else does called Who Votes for Mayor, there's a huge gap in the voting rate among young people. So in the city of Boston, which is one of the places where they could get the data, just 28% of young people, that's under 35, is voting in mayoral election, compared to 66% of 65 plus. So there's already a large gap in information, access, and efficacy around voting, especially among young people. And this would only exacerbate that. A lot of the reasons why young people don't vote actually is because they are trying to vote and they actually know what they want, but they feel that they may be embarrassed because they go to the wrong places. They may be told that they're actually not eligible to vote. And it can really have a damaging impact on their journey as a voter moving forward as they age beyond age 18 or 20 or what have you. So we really don't want to be part of that stereotype of young people as unknowledgeable voter and by further confusing them and kind of having not a very high turnout. as a city, we tried to really increase the voter turnout by having that lawsuit that ended in the changes in the system so that the voter efficacy is increasing. We also had a significant increase in voter registration thanks to automatic voter registration. So we have a lot going on. And I think we really don't want to get in the way of the progress we've made thanks to a lot of advocates in this town and the state. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Gignat.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Attorney Veloso for allowing me to speak tonight. And thank you, Attorney Veloso, for giving us that background information. I too have serious concerns with the voter outreach to inform folks about this change. There are a number of voters across the city that are already confused with the change and how we are electing our elected officials in the fall and do not know about the new system. This change will further that confusion. Also, over the last decade, there have been various polling location changes that have caused confusion and oftentimes turns voters off from going to the polls in general. In Attorney Veloso's remarks, he indicated that there would be a change in the fall in 2021, and then again a change in the election to follow. I don't think changing polling locations every election is best practice. I have concerns regarding communication strategy of the city to inform voters of this change. And also have concerns regarding voters getting to their new location, issues with transportation, waiting in long lines, and again, overall confusion. I respectfully request the commission reconsider its previous vote to reduce the number of polling locations for the 2021 municipal election. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephen Malaguti.
Yes, thank you. Well, the previous speakers have made a lot of great arguments, ones that I would agree with all of them. Obviously, having one polling place per district is more than problematic. It's discriminatory against poor people, against elderly people, people with disabilities, etc. So it seems to me that you should reconsider the vote. District 4, for instance, is really problematic. There should be, in my opinion, at least 2 polling places per district. Well, how could you prevent double voting? In some places I've been around the world, they stamp your hand with indelible ink when you vote. So if you try to go and vote somewhere else, you're marked as having voted. So it's doable. You really need more than 1 polling place per district. Otherwise, it's just not fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Tooch Van.
Election Commission, thanks for your service to the city. My name Tooch Van. I'm a proud resident of Saulo, 106 Lundberg Street. Most important, I'm so proud to support district representations. Finally, we're here. As one of the plaintiffs, I express my deep concern about the agenda's item 3C, the decision that Election Commission made with 5 to 6 polling stations closed. It's not a good idea. We, as a member of community, not very happy. So what's next? I'm here to urge the Election Commission to reconsider their decisions, votes, and the City Council should look at this issue seriously. The Low Sun should write covered on this issue. Community not happy. We still have time to do this. Please reconsider your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff Foster.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thanks so much for holding public input tonight. I really appreciate being able to speak. My name is Jeff Foster, and I'm testifying before you tonight, both as the Executive Director of Common Cause Massachusetts, but also as a proud Lowellian living at 122 Humphrey Street in Centerville. I'm testifying tonight at a difficult moment as this esteemed body has already voted on June 15th on a proposal to reduce polling locations across the city. While my understanding is that this is an effort to make the administration of the upcoming preliminary and municipal elections easier and to coincide with outreach to voters about the new voting structure, I respectfully submit that we have major concerns with this policy and the process. At a time when we see attacks on our democracy in states like Georgia and Texas, where voter suppression tactics are not just common, but brazen, it came as a shock to me to learn that the city was considering a nearly 40% reduction in polling locations for an election that has major consequences for representation and equity. This is also a time when we see great expansions to voting, like vote by mail and early in person. Look, it's not easy to navigate the lawsuit, the drawing of new maps, and an overhaul to our city charter, and I commend your work to date. But if the mission has always been to increase representation and civic participation, reducing polling locations totally misses the mark. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 54, requires that precincts must not be bigger than 4,000 residents and that each requires its own polling location. Those can be consolidated under law into one physical location, but you run serious risks of making things very confusing for voters, and you run the risk of creating long lines on election day. And do we even know yet if the locations being recommended can accommodate what's necessary? I have questions about the Robinson in my neighborhood for 4 precincts. One solution could be to analyze all the public schools and identify 2 per new council district that could be accessible to the voters and that could be left in place for future state and federal elections, making outreach simpler and facilitating long-term voting habits. Also, as was noted, the city has a constitutional obligation to redraw the precincts within the next year, which will surely add more confusion to the public and a renewed need to reimagine voting locations next year anyway. Another solution for the city to consider, although there isn't much time left for the municipal election, is to adopt e-poll books and request financial support for such an infrastructure improvement from Secretary Galvin's office utilizing Help America Vote Act funding. I'm also concerned with this process and how the decision was made without much, if any, public input. The fact that there's such attention tonight shows that people are paying attention and that this decision happened too much under the radar for sufficient public input. I'm nervous that there will be many voters in my neighborhood who will assume that they voted at the same location last year, which saw record turnout, and who may miss the mail that you'll have to send them notifying them of the change, and who will become discouraged and not vote. Also of concern is the issue of accessibility, as others have stated. Making voters, some who don't have transportation, cross major roads like Bridge Street or the Boulevard, or even the river itself, creates new, unnecessary, and literal barriers to voting in the city. I know we all want to do what's right, and what's right is to make it easier and not harder for voters to cast their ballot, especially this fall when the stakes are so high and we're redesigning our representative government. But we deserve a process that is done with us and not to us. That's why I'm joining with many others on this call tonight to respectfully ask this esteemed body adopt a new motion tonight to reconsider the June 15th vote, to put this issue on an upcoming agenda, perhaps even at your next meeting, and to do the outreach to the public. This commission can make changes to polling locations up to just 20 days before an election, so you have time to do this. A major change like this should be debated with maximum public input, and I'm sure we can find a solution that works for voters and administrators alike, but one that makes it easier and not harder to vote. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. John Drinkwater, Councilman Drinkwater.
I don't see him on the list as of this time.
Mary Torres.
Do you want to Marty?
Oh, after.
Okay. Can you raise it? Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Torres. I live in the Lower Highlands. I work as part-time coordinator for Lowell Votes, which is a collaborative coalition of nonprofit organizations and community partners trying to do our best to track the new system changes and do voter education in between cycles and do voter registration and get out the vote efforts with the constituents that our partners serve in the areas that they are working in, and also with new partners growing over time to increase voter turnout. Lowell Votes has been around for about 6 or 7 years, and we're always learning and trying to
do better also in partnership with the city as much as possible. We also learned about this vote late. We are, doing our best to track everything and, put materials together, do translations in 4 languages for all of them, and prepare to do good get out the vote efforts. And as you've heard with the speakers tonight and many more that couldn't attend, we're definitely very concerned with this. I have my own concerns, not just in District 4, but citywide. It's wildly insufficient for what is needed and very confusing. And I do believe that many people with this would likely give up and not vote. I also request that the vote at the previous meeting be reconsidered and that a motion be put on to reconsider it and then have a public process similar to this one with additional experts and the public for possible solutions, additional polling locations, and to review the outreach and public education that will happen on this. After the pandemic year, all of our community partners that had, many of them doing social service work, mutual aid work, public outreach in other ways, this change would only further burden all of our partners in trying the best that we can to get this information out. And so I appreciate any opportunity for us to find some solutions together.
Thank you. And Marty Hogan, I think, has joined us. Marty Hogan.
Unmute yourself, Marty.
I'm sorry about that. I'm not used to using it on my phone. I just want to say, like everybody else, thank you to the Elections Commission for allowing me to speak here tonight, not only as obviously a resident, but also a candidate and also the president of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, CNAG. Over the last few months, we've been asked by our members that we bring in the city to explain how the new voting system is set up and how it will be done on election day. And I have requested that from the city, and what I've gotten back has been, we don't have anything yet, we will tell you when. With this change and this being done with one precinct voting location in the districts, it's going to make it even harder for our residents to know and how know where to go to vote. I think it, as everybody else has said, it reduces the ability for our voters to have a transparent and open election. And I think that that makes it much harder for people to believe and to trust in the system that's being put in, considering it is very, very different than what we've had in the past. I would ask that we reconsider the vote and that we make a change to allow for at least 2 locations in each district. I think that would be at least something that could work for most people. Additionally, the city or the Elections Commission or the Elections Office needs to get out to the different civic groups and civic areas and get the information out to the people. It is paramount that we do that because we need to have our elections open, free, and transparent. And as a candidate and as a resident, I would expect nothing less. So I ask you please to consider your vote on the 15th and to please reconsider it again and carefully think about how this will impact the people of Lowell. We want to invite people to vote. We don't want to push them away from voting. We want to invite people to be able to be part of the system and not against the system or think that the system is against them. So thank you. And I hope we can come to some kind of compromise here.
Thank you. And did Anthony Milsey join?
I don't see him on the list, sorry.
Okay. Well, that comes to the at the end of our speakers.
Madam Chairwoman, I believe Councilor Drinkwater has just joined as well. He just came on a minute ago.
Counselor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is John Drinkwater, resident of 232 Remington Street, and wanted the opportunity to weigh in tonight. First of all, to thank the Commissioners for your work and for your service to the city. I understand that many of the decisions that you're making to implement a really important election systems change are being made given circumstances that none of us would choose to have in light of a pandemic that's disrupted life in a number of ways, but notably in this case by delaying the U.S. Census, our ability to collect data, and our ability to receive it as a city. That fact has thrown a wrench into former plans that I know we had to redraw precinct lines as is statutorily mandated that the city do every 10 years. That the plan was to draw those to line up with new city council district boundaries to make voting simpler. Unfortunately, now we're faced with a new election system. The fact that we won't have the ability to redraw precinct lines in this way, and a choice between what seems to be the status quo of our current wards and precinct boundaries, and a change to make sure that people will be voting within their city council districts. I understand this is a very, very difficult choice that's been thrust upon this commission. And what I do want to weigh in on tonight is not necessarily on the merits of the status quo or the policy that was voted on by this commission to reduce the number of polling locations. What I want to speak on is a matter of process. What I have heard from is outreach from a number of other residents of this community who were taken a bit by surprise by this very impactful and substantive change, which is understandable. This is a big change, whether we're talking about the election system or a consolidation of polling locations. So what I would ask the commissioners tonight to consider is allowing for more of a public process and to hear members of the public before any decisions are made. So a way of doing that, what I would suggest, if it's possible for this commission to move a reconsideration of the vote, not necessarily to re-vote in the negative, to vote down the proposal, but if it's possible to reconsider and then table the matter so that another meeting could be held and members of the public can be heard and give their input. I think that would be beneficial to the process, to the community, and to transparency in general. So I would ask the commissioners to consider a decision that would allow for public input before final decisions are made, because I do believe that these changes do raise questions of access and equity. And I know they're difficult decisions, but they are ones that I think those issues of access and equity do deserve more of a full public vetting before any final decisions are made on this. And I know time is of the essence too. So, and we need to move this process, but I do ask the commission to consider such a step to bring the public more into this process. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight and for allowing me to join a little late. I apologize. I was at the city's COVID-19 memorial that just ended and joined as soon as I could. So thank you very much for your accommodation on that matter as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So that is actually the end of our speaker list. I did want to open it up though and give anyone else who has joined the call an opportunity to speak if they choose to.
I think maybe the best way to do it would be, if you are interested in speaking, there's a function in Zoom to raise your hand. So please raise your hand and then we'll go by those who have raised their hands. I see that I believe Paul Belly was the first to raise his hand. So if we want to go that way, we can do it that way. And again, if you are interested in speaking, please raise your hand and keep it raised until you're called.
So Paul Belly. You're muted.
Mr. Belly, you're muted right now.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, first of all, thank you to the commission for having this forum. I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiments that I've heard from all of my neighbors here in the city. I'd just like to remind everybody that 10 years ago, the city council chose to eliminate the preliminary election to, we had three folks, and they went to the state reps, and they did it one time to eliminate that preliminary election to save money. Echoing that, I am running for District 4, which runs from Centerville all the way up to back central. I've been here. I live a half a mile from where I was born here in Pawtucketville. There's a lot of old families here. And for them to go across the river to vote, we used to vote at the Greenhalghs, we used to vote at St. Louis School, we used to vote at the Wang. And for these older folks to be able to go, to change, what they've been doing for years and years and years, to go across the river to vote, I think is wrong. We have some, I remember they had a voting booth at St. Anthony's. The downtown folks used to vote at the senior center, at the Masons, the Masonic Temple. So I respectfully ask that the commission reconsider this to make it accommodating to all of the residents of Lowell to vote. I mean, our voting record is not good, but I think it's going to even be more difficult with these district changes, knocking on doors. People don't understand the district change. They don't understand what's all of the changes that have come about. So I respectfully ask the commission to reconsider and give at least a couple more voting locations for our residents. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The next one is Justin Ford is the next one.
Hello.
Justin Ford?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to thank you guys today for letting me speak on this issue. So I want to speak on this issue because back in 2012 was the first time for me to vote in an election. And now that I see that you guys are changing the system to reduce the capacity of about 40% of the voting locations is going to be a big issue for people when they go to the polls this November and they don't know which their polling locations that they've been going to. Now they're going to have to turn around and go back home because they can't vote at that time. That's going to create a big problem for that on the first hand. The second hand is some of those people are going to be discouraged to vote as well. So I ask you guys to reconsider the motion tonight. I echo a lot of the same changes that everybody else is saying tonight, that this is going to be a big problem coming up in the November. So I really hope you guys reconsider this and put more thought into it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's it for the hands, right?
Yeah. Just to, if I may, I could do a final call out. A final call out to all who are viewing. If there's anyone else who hasn't spoken yet who'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. I'm seeing none, so I will submit that public comment is ended.
Thank you, everyone, for all of your comments. We will definitely take it into consideration. So from that, I would actually like to make a motion to reconsider the vote that was taken on June 15th.
I'm sorry,
Maybe they're clapping.
that's a clap.
I would need a second on this.
We have a motion by Zoe, seconded by Bev.
We have discussion.
Yes, open to discussion.
I'd just like to say I appreciate everybody coming in and talking to us. I would say that we can reconsider the decision, but in fact, we didn't make a decision. We rubber stamped a decision. And this commission has had virtually no input into this whole process from day one. And for those, in the last meeting, we raised all these issues. And in fact, we raised an issue which didn't make it into the minutes. And that is there was going to be a lot of blowback if we did this. And obviously there is, as we can hear from you all tonight. But to say it went under the radar, I mean, it's been obvious from the beginning when this consultant hired by the city totally ignored our precinct structure that there were going to be problems and big problems. And as soon as the city council accepted his report and agreed on his districts, we were locked in. I mean, it's unfortunate. And I know our chair of our commission and the commissioners have discussed at length how we're going to get the word out to people and get people to the polls. But, we've been basically locked into this position almost from day one when they hired this consultant who decided that precincts didn't count. So we can reconsider that decision, but I don't know what else we're going to decide. We can decide more polling places, but we still have to have a structure to do that. So that's all for me, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I would just like to echo Jim's sentiments that we have been actually talking about this and the issues were raised. And just to let you know, Jim, I'm looking at the minutes, they were put into the minutes too, about the voter suppression. Yes, it was our last minute. It wasn't, it is the minutes, we adopted the minutes at the beginning of this because we read them and it's reflective of what happened our last meeting. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so we can start with new business. Discussion A.
The motion is still
Oh, I'm sorry,
outstanding, so if discussion is closed, if you wish to vote on it. Yeah. Okay. I guess motion by Zoe, seconded by Bev. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
So now does this mean we come up with a new method to have more than one voting place in each district?
Well, I'd say at
That's what it sounds like.
At this point, given that it has been moved for reconsideration, I'm going to have to essentially see what can be done at this stage, logistically and practically, if it is possible. So I will look into that starting tonight.
Well, we can use the purple finger method they use in the Iraqi elections. Dip your finger in the purple ink, you voted.
It's possible.
Not everybody won't make it.
It's possible. Part of the issue is that we have a primary and immediately a election in November. So we may have to use different colored ink. Again, and sort of the question we have to look to is how it can be done. So I will look into the practical aspects of it.
We did have excuse me, we do have a question in the chat that explain how we're locked in on the decision. We're not locked in on the decision to have one voting place for precinct, but we are locked into the fact that the old precincts simply don't count anymore. Used to be people went to their voting place, their precinct was there, didn't matter what the election was, and they voted for it. And in this new system, those precincts have been disregarded. And so now we have to be able to come up with a system which we can identify voters, even though, we don't have a record of the precinct. The precinct is the core organization in elections. You vote in your precinct. And if the precincts are split up and disregarded, then it creates all kinds of problems. And that's what's happened here.
I don't know who went, was it Paul that was next or Linda? Paul, go ahead with your question.
I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. We want voter participation. And by doing this, we're not getting it. It's voter suppression, in my opinion.
Thank you. Linda Clark.
Hi, Linda Clark, 15 Boylston Lane. My question is, I don't know if I misunderstood Jim saying that the city council voted on this one precinct per district. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe that they did.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. And again, go ahead.
We were presented with this option and asked to adopt it.
I see.
Under, if I may, under the city charter and other procedures, polling location changes are under the purview of the Election Commission. So by way of reference, because of handicap accessibility issues 2 years ago, the St. Louis School could no longer be used as a polling location because there was no way for disabled voters to access the polls. So as a result, the Election Commission voted to move the polling location to Green Helge Elementary School, which is across the street. And then, per state law, notice was provided that way to voters that were affected. So in terms of procedure, I believe what Jim was referring to was the federal consent decree, which again, the city council voted to approve that consent decree as the governing body of the city of Lowell. So I believe that's what Jim is referring to and not the change in polling locations, which again would be under the purview of the Election Commission.
Thank you for the clarification. Again, the few people that I've spoken to since I found out about this are just crazy confused. They don't know anything about the new districts, and now we're telling them they can only vote in one particular place. And again, in District 4, it's almost impossible for some people to get to the high school. And increasing at least one more per district, I think, is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions in the chat? Keep reading.
I believe the last one is Kim Scott, who indicated color coded by new district. I don't know if she's referring to the map or.
So, yeah, we discussed that as well, Kim, in our last meeting. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say, we didn't take this lightly. We discussed this at length in our last meeting as to how we can educate people and how we can get turnout. And we agreed that it looks like voter suppression, and it may, I don't know, may turn out to be, I don't know. But we've come up with a number of ideas to try to avert that. Many of them you expressed here tonight, and some others we've come up with on our own, additional ones. So we're not ignoring the problem. We're very concerned about it.
There is a question from Kai regarding voter outreach. I can indicate that there are already plans in place to do voter outreach, both in terms of mailings regarding the changes to the municipal election process, as well as the polling locations that were to be changed for, again, this year, as well as voter outreach through the city's website, social media platforms that the city has, communications through LTC, and other venues. So yes, there are resources in place that we are working towards to promote voter outreach regarding the new election system.
And then also, we've also discussed as a body, additional ways of communicating to the voters in terms of outreach that reflect the 21st century. So like, you know, text messaging, different ways of communicating via social media. We've discussed this at length, and we are trying to engage or ensure that everyone is, I guess, notified and engaged. So I don't know if that Marty Hogan is whose hands up?
Jeff Foster, but I'm told we look alike. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
First, just want to say again, Madam Chair and Commission, thank you so much. Can I ask one, just clarification, was that motion to reconsider passed on a voice vote?
Yes, it was. The vote was all in favor, no opposed.
So just want to say thank you so much for that consideration. And as you move forward and revisit how to ensure that there is equitable access to polling locations for the upcoming election, just want to commit my time, my resources as a thought partner to the city. Happy to help with outreach. Also happy to help figure out a solution, perhaps that results in multiple polling locations for each new district. But definitely think this is a time to expand access to voting and not reduce it. So thank you again for that motion, and we look forward to future conversations.
So I did have my hand up too,
Yes, go ahead.
although we do look a lot alike. So basically, I just put it into the chat, but I'm asking, as a person who's involved with the neighborhood groups, like I said, CNAG, and I'm sure that many of the other ones around the city would love to have some people come in and explain this to our groups, because we're also a engine to bring information to all of the people in the neighborhoods. And I've been stonewalled by the city. I've asked several times. The manager's office keeps on telling me they're going to do it with the Secretary of State at a time in the future. I want to get some commitment for our groups that will have those people come out, or you guys, or whoever it is representing the city, to tell us how things are going to be. Because until we have it from the, and excuse the phrase, but the horse's mouth, nobody knows.
Go ahead, Mary.
I would love to speak to that also as representing Lowell Votes partners. There are many partners who have been following the lawsuit changes, have been following the settlement, are prepared to be able to speak on how this new district system is playing out. We have lots of resources and materials now in multiple languages, which I know that I did provide Shauna Forster some in the city manager's office, and I know she brought some to the last CNAG meeting, but we're more than happy to bring, make those available for printing for groups to do themselves, as long as no changes are made to those materials. I know in past years, campaigns, I just want to add, so that it's on the record, in past years, there have been campaigns who have either removed our logos or added their own to Lowell Votes nonpartisan materials, which absolutely undermines our capacity to do the work that we do. So I want to make sure that does not happen going forward. And just also offer our time and resources, since we're very committed to doing this work.
Thank you.
I'll just one rebuttal on that, all due respect and all due
All due respect, we're gonna close this down. so that.
Well, no. The people want to hear it from the city. That's
fine.
what.
We heard you.
Yeah, city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know how to mute, right? If you need to. So we're gonna move on to new business. Thank you again, everybody, for all of the great comments. We'll move to new business.
Okay, moving to new business, item 3A. So this was just an update of, again, meeting held last week with counsel for the plaintiffs in the Hewitt matter, in which I sort of updated that group and the participants there on the city's planned voter outreach efforts and, regarding the changes to the municipal process, again, indicating our goal of sort of promoting outreach through mailings, social media, LTC and the like, as well as, an initial discussion regarding the changes in polling locations, which we will again be looking at. That was essentially it, really. I thought the meeting appeared productive. So, obviously, as we move forward to closer to the election, we will be, working towards those outreach efforts. So,
Were there any, was there any questions or comments brought up to bring back to us specifically from the?
Based on my notes, I believe it was more inquiries regarding, mostly outreach and the like. But for the most part, it was more my just giving a presentation and then, fielding inquiries from plaintiffs' counsel and the other groups. One concern that the groups had was a note that the city's materials are trilingual, English, Spanish, and Khmer. But some groups expressed a concern that the translated materials don't necessarily reflect regional dialect changes. So translated Spanish may not be, a dialect of Spanish from, let's say, another country like Puerto Rico or regional dialects. One way I pro-offered that could be done to address that is once the city does its own translation for materials in Spanish and Khmer for, let's say, the trilingual ballot and things like that, the English statements could be provided to community groups. So if they wish, they can do their own translation with their regional dialect groups. Obviously, from a logistic standpoint, we can't really continually translate something to reflect dialect changes, but by providing the English communication to these community groups, they can probably be best situated to address, regional dialects and the like. So that was one thing that I indicated that we would do, moving forward to try to address those issues. So that was one sort of major thing that was brought up, and moving forward, we will certainly be in communication on that. So.
Minor point, Elliot, Puerto Rico is not another country.
Yes, you're right. I apologize. It is a Commonwealth and a territory of the United States. So I apologize for that error on my part. It certainly was unintentional. So
I was just gonna let it go.
No.
Thought we catch it before it showed up in the sun.
No, you're absolutely correct. Terminology is important, and just like it was inappropriate of me to refer to it as another country when it is certainly not. So I apologize for the error and any offense of that.
Any other questions on this one, guys?
Okay, hearing none, I guess moving over to B, item 3B. So in regards to poll worker recruitment, we have just sent out letters to our poll workers inquiring about their interest in working the polls for September and November. We've had some people come in and have signed up. So our hope is that as the letters go up, we'll be able to get a count of how many poll workers we can expect from last year. Part of the issue is that for municipal elections and other elections outside of the presidential election, you don't necessarily get as much poll worker interest. Something that we're hopeful of is that we did have a lot of new poll workers last year because of COVID and the presidential elections. So we have them on our list. Our hope is that when we send the poll worker letters out, some of them will express interest to do it again. We'd love to have them. That's sort of what we're looking at this stage. And again, we will also be doing our traditional efforts to get people to work as poll workers, reaching out to Career Center, working out to UMass Lowell, and other community groups and the like. Something that we have implemented in our poll worker applications to, again, reflect the challenges in this election is we want to make sure that if poll workers are volunteering for a campaign, that they disclose that. So, one thing we want to make sure is that we ensure, impartial poll workers. Now, I was sort of checking the regs, and it's definitely state law that if you are a candidate, you cannot serve as a poll worker. But I haven't seen, it's a bit more vague in regards to if you volunteer for a campaign. So we're asking that poll workers disclose that, and to the extent that there is a conflict, we'll double check it. One thing we could do is assign them to a polling location where they have no interaction with the candidate. So, that it's not necessarily a complete block or a detriment, but it's something that we need to consider. So we've updated the letters to ensure that that's reflected. So again, we've started the outreach for our poll workers. Our hope is that we will have, the same people come in, but as you know, it's always a challenge to get poll workers.
So we're only being done right now, just send the letters out. Have we started with the social media aspect?
We will be working on that. Again, we wanted to send the letters out first so we can get our current poll workers an opportunity to respond. And then our intention is in July, we will be doing out our advertising for poll workers and the like. So starting next week. So.
Thank you. I think there's another question in there.
Oh, is there? Kai, yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, thank you so much. I wondered if you guys have done outreach to high school. There's a chapter 296 that requires high schools to have voter registration nonpartisan, and Massachusetts does allow 16 and 17-year-olds to serve as election judges. And if you're looking for impartial poll workers, I wondered about that. So just a comment, thanks.
Yeah, we do. The Career Center has connections to Lowell High School, so that's a way in which we can get potential high school students. Obviously, being 16 years or older is a requirement for that. So we do outreach from that aspect as well for students, as well as UMass Lowell, the college, and Middlesex Community College. They often have people who volunteer for that as well. So. Yep, you're welcome. I think that's it. So moving on to the next item agenda, which is 3D, status on nomination paper and candidate reporting requirements for 2021 municipal elections. So as of right now, we have approximately 30 candidates, 30 persons who will pull papers. Whether or not they submit signatures necessary to qualify obviously will not be known until the final day of submission, which is August 3rd at 5 o'clock. Interest has been, I'd say, robust at this stage, but again, it's pulling papers. Until the signatures are submitted, we will not know what races will trigger a preliminary election. So again, we're trying to work on it as we get them, and as we receive signatures, Stephanie and Shannon are processing them and reviewing the signatures to make sure that they are registered voters in the city of Lowell. Again, the requirement for this year is 150 signatures, regardless of the position running for, so long as they're registered voters involved.
Is that 30 for both council and school committee?
150 for, yes.
No, I mean the 30 people who pull papers.
Oh, yes,
separate-
that's in total. I'm sorry. Yes, that's in total,
Okay.
both city council, school committee, district, and at large. Sorry, I don't have the numbers on hand actually breaking up who's pulled for what. We have an Excel spreadsheet, but I don't have it in front of me at this stage. So
So do we have candidates for all districts?
my understanding from Shannon is that we do, as of this stage. But again, these are just people who pull papers, not that they've qualified. So. And again, there's also the challenge procedure that, to the extent that candidates are challenged, that can occur. That's up to, I believe, August 19th, last day in which you can challenge a candidate. So there's that as well. So. That's about it, though, in terms of status, if you'd like me to move on. Okay. All right, moving on to final item, new business 3E, discussion of logistics plans and setup of polling locations for 2021 elections. Again, I'm still working on the logistics plans with custodians and Department of Public Works. Obviously, in light of today's vote, we'll have to see again what's practical and what can be possible. But the logistics plans, again, will be consistent with our prior logistics plans. So spreadsheets with polling location setups, equipment manifests for DPW. I also need to, I will be reaching out to the Lowell Public Schools so we can reserve school locations for elections. It's my intention to do it this week. Additionally, I will be in touch with Christine Clancy, the head of the Department of Public Works, to go over the sort of logistics plans. As the commissioners are probably aware, Dave Diamond, who was the previous contact person who led the elections logistical efforts for DPW, he is retired. So we wish Dave Diamond well in his retirement. But in light of that, we need to. I need to be in touch with DPW just so we can work out, the new people who will be in charge of that process.
In the locations that are schools, the school will be on.
That's why I need to reach out to the superintendent to make sure that schools are closed on those days. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Foster.
Someone's in the waiting room.
Oh, someone's in the waiting room. I'm sorry.
I do have a quick question in regards to item 3E.
3E?
Yeah, the topic right now.
Oh, yes.
Just curious, since you, can you speak to the next steps now, since the motion to reconsider the June 15th vote to reduce polling locations has passed? Will there now be a new plan with more polling locations that will then come before the commission at a future date? And how will that impact the logistics and the plan for preparing those locations?
I think at this stage, what I'm going to have to do is I will have to reach out to, again, the city's vendors for our voting machines, LHS Associates, and see, and I mean this on sort of a practical level, what can be done in light of the fact that our wards and precincts are split. Is there a way that we can sort of design the system in such a way that would enable our current polling locations to be used in total? Again, I can't speak to that.
Excuse me, I know that we discussed that very question or that very last minutes.
Right.
Last meeting, and LHS informed you that the machines could be coded.
Right, they could.
Allow
They could be coded to allow for
voting.
the voting to occur at a district level. The question, though, is they analyzed it on the fact that there was going to be one centralized polling location per district. They don't necessarily know if it's possible to program the computers in such a way to reflect the fact that you have wards and precincts that are divided up into multiple districts. I don't know if that's possible, so I need to reach out to them, because the issue again is sort of, because we can't rely on the wards and precincts, you can't code a ballot to correspond with the ward and precinct, because again, they're split into multiple municipal districts. So I need to find out if there's a way in which it can be done. And It may be that the answer is that it cannot. I don't know at this stage. I have to reach out to them.
Can,
If you could clarify that, because it says otherwise here, that,
Right.
but it can be done, and if the wards and precincts were unavailable, that's what we were told.
Right, it could be programmed, but again, where it can only be, the idea was that if there was one location, it could be programmed so that all voters that go to that location in District 1 could vote, and then it would reflect it. I don't know if it can be done, and I'll have to check with LHS if it can be done in such a way that when a ward and precinct is divided in the way it is by these municipal districts, whether we can code the machines in such a way that it can accept them. And again, I can't speak to LHS Associates. It may not be possible, but I will reach out to them. So that's sort of where we're at right now. I will determine what is feasible again at this stage.
Thank you.
We'll also have to double the number of poll workers.
yes.
Again, we will look at that, Jim. It depends on those people who step up and want to be poll workers. So hopefully we will get the poll workers to do it. I don't know at this stage.
Can I just ask a routine kind of, maybe this is way beyond this, but why weren't these issues thought of when they were splitting up the districts?
Got to ask the guy in California.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that if this is going to cause, I mean, now it's pretty much the barn doors are open and the horses are out. Using analogies.
Again, I would note that it was anticipated that we would have census data prior to the elections so that, you know, we would have re-precincting. Again, we are sort of stuck with a situation where we don't have the census data, we will not have the census data in time, and we will not have re-precincting in time. So we have to work with what we have. So I will look at that.
Any other questions? Great.
Okay, so I think that remains, I think that's the last for the new business. So I think we're at adjournment. I think before we end, we just want to thank everyone who's in attendance. You know, thank you for your comments, and we hope this has been informative, and we will go from there. So thank you again.
Move we adjourn. Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Pope. Do we have a second? Seconded by Bev Anthus. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion to adjourn accepted. This meeting is adjourned at 7:29 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone.